I never imagined a simple dinner could become a night I'd remember for the rest of my life. We'd been invited to a small gathering, just a handful of close friends and their partners. I arrived on time, carrying the familiar mix of anticipation and mild anxiety that always tag along with these events. My wife greeted me warmly, but there was a stiffness in her voice I couldn't ignore. I tried to shrug it off, convincing myself it was just a fatigue from a long week. The table was set beautifully, candlelight flickering softly over glasses and plates. Conversation flowed, laughter punctuating the room. Yet somewhere in the back of my mind, I felt a tension that lingered, unspoken. Then she said it, a sentence so casual, yet sharp, it cut through the warmth of the evening. Sit a little farther away. The words hung there like a challenge. I paused, studying her face, trying to figure out if she was joking, irritated, or simply embarrassed. The glance she threw around the room told me everything: shame, irritation, and a quiet desire to distance herself from me in front of everyone. I felt the sting, the heat rising, but I didn't respond the way she probably expected. I just nodded, moved a few chairs over, and sat down. My posture stayed relaxed, my voice calm, even when she shot me a look full of exasperation. And then it happened. Another woman, smiling politely, slid into the seat beside me. There was no hesitation, no awkwardness, just a presence acknowledged and a subtle shift in the energy of the room. I caught her eyes briefly, and a small, knowing smile passed between us. Suddenly, the evening that had promised discomfort felt entirely different. I realized then that my reaction, or lack of it, was about to set the tone for the night. She introduced herself casually, voice light, as if the tension didn't exist. I responded the same way, polite and measured, letting conversation flow naturally. There was an ease to her manner, a calmness that stood in stark contrast to my wife's tight, clipped energy across the table. It didn't take long to notice the change. People listened more attentively when I spoke. Laughter felt lighter. The awkward atmosphere that had hovered since my wife's remark began to dissipate. I caught my wife's gaze. She frowned slightly, jaw tight. For a moment, I wondered if she expected me to react offensively, angrily, or with humiliation. But I stayed composed. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't argue. And I certainly didn't apologize for something that wasn't my fault. My silence, calm and deliberate, carried more weight than any words ever could. The woman beside me laughed at a small joke I made, the sound easy and natural. I realized the more composed I remained, the more the focus subtly shifted away from tension. It wasn't about proving superiority or making a point. It was about holding my own dignity, showing that I didn't need to fight for respect or validation in someone else's presence. By the time dinner ended, the dynamic had changed completely. My wife's attempts to regain control, to draw me back into embarrassment, had failed silently. I walked away from the table with a quiet sense of victory, not born from confrontation, but from maintaining composure under provocation. It struck me then how often people misunderstand strength. They expect outbursts, arguments, or displays of anger to measure loyalty or love. But real strength lies in patience, in calm, in letting action speak louder than words. When we stepped outside into the cool night air, my wife's expression was unreadable, a mix of frustration and disbelief. The woman who had sat beside me smiled warmly before leaving. I lingered for a moment, letting the quiet sink in, reflecting on what had just happened. Later, on the drive home, my wife was silent. I didn't try to fill the space with explanations or apologies. There was nothing to defend, nothing to argue over. Her discomfort spoke for itself, a silent acknowledgement of her failed attempt to unsettle me. And for the first time in weeks, maybe months, I felt entirely in control of my emotions. Days passed, and the dinner continued to replay in my mind, not as a source of tension, but as a reminder of a principle I had long underestimated. Respect, self-worth, and composure aren't granted by others. They are preserved by the choices we make in moments of challenge. I chose calm. I chose dignity. I chose to walk away from provocation without losing myself. In the weeks that followed, the shifts in our interactions became more apparent. My wife's attempt to control diminished, replaced by quiet acknowledgement. and the woman from that dinner, our brief, unplanned encounter, remained a reminder of how balance can shift when one person refuses to be dragged into drama. That night, and every night since, I've carried a lesson that power often lies in restraint, and confidence is born not from reaction, but from presence. Some victories are quiet. Some lessons are learned without words. And some moments prove that true strength is often measured in silence.